The movie shows how Tala's family copes with post-war struggles in the Philippines, facing betrayal, illness, and death amidst a malevolent fairy's influence. After World War II ended, the situation in the world became very difficult. In the Philippines, a distressing scene unfolds where a soldier is seen consuming the flesh of another deceased soldier, highlighting the harsh realities of post-war life. Following this, we are introduced to a Filipino family comprising Tala, a young girl who serves as the central character, her mother and her brother. Their circumstances are dire due to the war, leaving them without enough food to sustain themselves. Into this struggling family's life enters a Japanese man who accuses Tala's father of stealing gold from the Japanese army. Despite Tala's father denying these accusations, the man threatens them, giving them a 2-day ultimatum to return the gold or face severe consequences. Fearing for his family's safety, Tala's father resolves to confront the man and devises a plan, reassuring Tala that he will return soon after venturing into the jungle to resolve the situation. As days pass, the family anxiously awaits the return of Tala's father, uncertain of the outcome of his encounter with the Japanese man. Tala's father has not yet returned home, causing concern for the family. Suddenly, Tala's mother falls seriously ill, prompting their maid to assist her onto her bed in her room. In the midst of this distressing situation, Tala accidentally suggests that their father might be dead, which deeply upsets her sick mother. Feeling guilty and saddened by the situation, Tala retreats to her room. Eventually, Tala resolves to search for her missing father in the jungle, with her brother deciding to accompany her for support. They take their father's gun with them for protection as they leave the house. Upon reaching the jungle, they come across a hut where Tala finds some candy and eats it due to her prolonged hunger. However, inside the hut's room, they encounter a terrifying sight, a dead body surrounded by numerous insects, which frightens Tala immensely. Filled with fear, Tala and her brother leave the hut. As they continue their journey, Tala's brother hears an eerie voice in the distance. Tala is relieved to finally see her father ahead of them, but when she turns around to check on her brother, he is nowhere to be found. Following the mysterious voice, Tala's brother reaches a stream in the jungle where he discovers many corpses from the war, causing him to feel overwhelmed with fear, leading him to decide to return home. In the jungle, Tala ventures to a church in search of her brother. There, she encounters a fairy who commends Tala's pure heart for allowing her entry into the church. The fairy informs Tala that her brother has safely returned home and reassures her that her father remains unharmed. Offering Tala a wish, the fairy awaits her response, but Tala, overwhelmed with fear, retreats home without granting her wish. Upon returning home, Tala faces her mother's reprimand for leaving without permission. Expressing her inability to find her father, Tala retreats to her room, consumed by sadness. Later, the same fairy reappears in Tala's room, divulging her knowledge of the family situation. The fairy reveals that Tala's father's intentions extend beyond confronting the Japanese man to seeking aid from the Americans, labeling him a traitor. Additionally, the fairy offers to heal Tala's sick mother, presenting her with a jar before vanishing from sight. The following morning, Tala's brother expresses deep apprehension and distress, recounting a troubling dream wherein he foresees their demise, mirroring that of those who perished in the war, compounded by the belief that no one will come to their aid. Tala quickly hugs her brother and reassures him, saying things won't be as bad as he thinks because the fairy will help them. She tells him all about the fairy. Meanwhile, outside their house, the same Japanese man who threatened their dad lurks. Inside, Tala's mom is so sick that Tala fears she might die. Not knowing what else to do, Tala follows the fairy's advice and places a bug on her mom, which miraculously makes her mom open her eyes and cough loudly, showing signs of improvement. By morning, her mom is completely well, much to the joy of Tala and her brother, who share everything about the fairy with their mom, even though it sounds strange. However, that night, her mom falls ill again, and they notice something strange on her back, as if the bug from the fairy is in her skin. The next morning, Tala's brother witnesses their mom eating her own hand in a bizarre manner, which terrifies him. The maid takes their mom to her room, but suddenly she experiences a strange fit and her condition worsens, with veins turning red and protruding from her body, and her tongue elongating like an animal's. Her mother's condition appeared as if she was possessed and being controlled by an unknown force, leaving the maid frightened. Hastily, the maid exited the room, locking it securely and concealing the key be within the pages of a Bible. Meanwhile, Tala journeyed into the forest carrying a sizable basket, seeking the same fairy for assistance. The fairy generously arranged a lavish feast for Tala, encouraging her to indulge freely. Famished after enduring days of hunger, Tala eagerly filled her basket with food before returning home. Upon her arrival, Tala's brother angrily blamed her for their mother's deteriorating condition, attributing it to the fairy's influence. In a fit of rage, Tala impulsively slapped her brother, but soon acknowledged the truth in his words. Later that night, Tala was disturbed by the sound of her bedroom door creaking open, signaling someone's presence outside. Venturing out to investigate, she encountered her mother with pitch-black eyes before she inexplicably vanished. Determined to find her mother, Tala followed the sound of her dog barking outside the house. Tala rushes outside and is horrified to witness her mom devouring their pet dog. Understanding that her mother has transformed into a demonic entity with a craving for both animals and humans, Tala hastily shuts the door in terror. The noise draws Tala's brother and the maid to the scene, where they find their mother lying unconscious alongside a wounded bird she attempted to consume. They confine her to her room, locking her inside. Feeling a deep sadness, Tala consoles her weeping brother, assuring him that she will find a solution to the situation. Meanwhile, outside their home, the same fairy who had been feasting on the bird arrives, unveiling her true nature as a malevolent, demon-like fairy. Inside the house, Tala confronts the fairy, accusing her of causing her mother's transformation into a demon. The fairy justifies her actions by claiming that she granted Tala's wish, but required a sacrifice in return. Enraged by this revelation, Tala lashes out at the fairy, who promptly disappears. The scene changes to Tala going to the basement, where she finds her maid and the Japanese man searching for gold. The Japanese man grabs Tala, demanding information about the gold, but she doesn't know anything. To protect his sister, Tala's brother brings their father's pistol and aims it at the Japanese man. But before he can shoot, the Japanese man shoots Tala's brother, causing him to bleed heavily. Enraged, Tala gives the keys to her mother's room to the Japanese man, pretending the gold is there, knowing her mom, now a demon, will attack him. Unaware of the danger, the man goes to her room. After he leaves, the maid reveals to Tala that her father wasn't a good person. He was a traitor working with America, causing the deaths of many innocent people. Shocked, Tala remains silent as the maid departs. Tala then takes the pistol from her brother's hand and follows the man. Hearing his screams, she shoots, but accidentally hits the maid instead of the Japanese man. Seeing this, Tala feels immense sadness because she is very close to the maid. Nonetheless, she enters the room, finding it empty, but the bathroom is covered in blood. Shockingly, she discovers her mom acting like a wild animal, devouring the body of the Japanese man. Terrified, Tala grabs her brother and flees, hoping to find help. Unfortunately, her brother succumbs to his injuries due to the extensive loss of blood. Heartbroken, Tala returns to the jungle church where she first encountered the fairy, pleading for an end to the chaos. The fairy offers her a golden mango, but Tala refuses. Enraged, the fairy reveals her true eerie appearance before fleeing in fear. Returning home, Tala discovers only her brother's severed head, realizing her mother's gruesome deeds. As her mom approaches, intent on attacking her, Tala locks herself in a room, declaring she has had enough of the madness. As soon as Tala declares enough is enough, a profound silence descends. Tala cautiously opened her room's door to find her mother fallen before her. The bug from her back vanished. Meanwhile, deep in the jungle, the fairy observes the situation and laughs. Tala's mother, in her dying moments, speaks the names of her children. Following this, the fairy reappears at Tala's house, offering her a golden mango with the promise that it will end all her sorrows. Despite her confusion, Tala accepts the mango, and the fairy disappears once more. Later, Tala's father returns home with his companion to find his wife and son deceased. Overwhelmed with grief, he breaks down in tears. However, his companion, revealing his true treacherous nature, shoots and kills him, betraying him in the end as punishment for his misdeeds. Tala also witnessed her father's death, feeling powerless to stop it. Everything unfolded this way because she didn't eat the golden mango offered by the fairy. Sadly, all of Tala's family members died except her. Now, Tala seeks to confront the fairy who caused her family's tragedy. Surprisingly, the fairy spared Tala because she had a pure heart. Despite being a demonic fairy who did wicked things, she only harmed those driven by greed or evil intentions. And with that, the movie story comes to an end.